The silver ship from Earth descended slowly through the glowing skies of Zirith. The city below was like a sea of crystal towers, each shining with soft light as if the stars themselves had fallen and planted roots in the soil. Thousands of citizens gathered in the main plaza to watch. This was a day that would be remembered. For the first time in history, a human had been invited to the court of the royal family of Zirith. Inside the ship, a young man named Ryan stood near the window. He was only 19 years old, but his shoulders carried the weight of his people. Humanity had fought hard to survive in the vast galaxy, and even though many advanced species doubted them, humans kept moving forward. Ryan was not a warrior, not a scientist of great fame, but he had something different. He had patience, courage, and the ability to stay calm even when others doubted him. That was why he had been chosen as the first envoy. When the ship landed, the crowd grew silent. The gates opened, and Ryan stepped down the ramp. He wore a simple dark suit with the emblem of Earth on the chest. His eyes scanned the crowd, but he kept his face calm. The citizens of Zirith were tall, elegant, with glowing marks on their foreheads and eyes that shimmered like polished gems. They whispered among themselves, curious to see what kind of being a human really was. Guards led Ryan through the plaza into the great hall of the palace. The hall was vast, with walls that shone like white stone, lined with banners of silver and blue. At the end of the hall sat the royal family on high seats. The king of Zirith, wise and calm, sat in the center. Beside him was the queen, graceful and watchful. But all eyes turned to their daughter, Princess Isha. Princess Isha was also 19, like Ryan. She was tall and carried herself with pride. Her silver robes sparkled as she sat with her chin slightly raised. She was young but already known for her sharp tongue and firm views. Many in the court admired her boldness. She believed in strength, tradition, and the superiority of her people. She did not believe humans belonged in the Council of Great Species. The announcer called in a clear voice, "Ryan of Earth, chosen envoy of humanity, greets the royal family of Zirith." Ryan stepped forward and bowed slightly. His words were calm and respectful. "I bring peace from my people. We hope to build trust and share knowledge as friends and allies." For a moment, the hall was silent. Then, Princess Isha leaned forward. Her voice rang across the chamber, sharp and cold. "Peace? Knowledge? From humans?" Her lips curled as she spoke. "You arrive from a small world at the edge of the stars, a race barely known, barely tested. And yet you dare stand before us as if you are equals. You should be thankful we even allowed you to step inside these halls." Gasps spread through the crowd. The words were harsh, even for her. Some nobles looked uneasy. Others nodded in approval, enjoying her boldness. Ryan stood still. His face did not change. He did not answer. Princess Isha was not finished. "You speak of friendship, but what can humans offer? Do you have great fleets? Do you have wisdom beyond centuries? You are children among the stars. Weak, fragile, and full of pride." The hall grew heavy with silence. All eyes turned to Ryan, waiting for him to defend his people, to argue, to prove himself. Even the king shifted slightly, but he did not stop his daughter. This was her test, and perhaps the humans as well. Ryan looked at Princess Isha for a long moment. His eyes were calm, not angry. He could feel the weight of the insult, but inside his heart there was no fire of rage. Instead, there was only a deep silence. He remembered the long history of his people, the struggles of Earth when the seas rose, when the skies darkened, when the first explorers stepped into the unknown and found only cold silence. He remembered the patience of those who built homes on barren rocks, the courage of those who carried fire into the endless night. Humanity did not need to prove itself with loud words. Without saying a single word, Ryan turned. He faced the great doors of the hall and began to walk away. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the chamber. Each step was louder than 100 arguments. The court watched in shock. Never before had anyone dared turn away from the words of a royal. Some whispered in disbelief. Others stared in silence. Princess Isha froze in her seat. For a moment she felt as if the ground beneath her shifted. She expected anger, she expected shouting, she expected him to beg or defend. But this silence was heavier than any reply. The king narrowed his eyes, watching carefully. The queen leaned slightly forward, her gaze following the young human as he walked out. The doors closed behind Ryan with a heavy sound. The hall remained still, as if the very air had been taken away. Isha sat back in her seat, her chest tight though she did not understand why. She had insulted him, yes, but why did his silence feel like a mirror placed before her pride? Why did his quiet departure stir the court more than her sharp words? The nobles began to whisper again. Some muttered that the human was weak, too fragile to answer. Others whispered that perhaps he was stronger than they thought, for he did not fall into her game of words. The young princess lifted her chin again, but her heart was not steady. For the first time, doubt touched her thoughts. Outside the palace, Ryan walked alone through the bright streets of Zirith. He did not hurry. His steps were steady. The citizens who saw him did not know what had happened inside the hall, but they noticed the calmness in his eyes. He did not carry anger, only quiet strength. Above, the sky of Zirith glowed with soft blue light. Ryan looked up and whispered to himself, though no one else could hear. We are not weak. We are not children. One day they will see. The doors of the great hall closed behind Ryan, leaving behind a silence that pressed heavily on those who remained inside. Princess Isha sat straight on her high seat, her face calm but her heart unsettled. She had spoken with pride and power, yet the human had not answered. He had not bowed, nor argued, nor even shown anger. He had only turned and walked away. Somehow, that simple act felt louder than any reply. The king leaned toward his daughter, his voice low but firm. Your words carried strength, but strength without wisdom can be empty. Remember this. Isha stiffened but gave no reply. She told herself that the human's silence meant weakness, yet doubt quietly scratched at the edge of her thoughts. Some nobles whispered among themselves, unsure whether to praise her boldness or question her judgment. The queen watched her daughter carefully, noticing the change in her eyes. Meanwhile, Ryan walked through the bright streets of Zirith. The city shone with a beauty unlike anything on earth. Towers of crystal reached toward the sky, glowing roads stretched across the ground, and streams of light floated in the air like ribbons. The citizens of Zirith were proud of their city, and rightfully so. But as Ryan walked, his thoughts were not on the beauty around him. He thought of his people, of Earth, and of the long journey that had brought him here. He replayed the princess's words in his mind. Weak. Fragile. Children among the stars. He did not feel anger. Instead, he felt a calm certainty. Humanity had been called weak many times before. When the first explorers left Earth, other species laughed at them. They said humans would not last long in the cold darkness of space. Yet here he was, standing on Zirith as an envoy. Silence was sometimes more powerful than words. Ryan did not wish to stay inside the palace any longer, so he wandered into the common districts of the city. The citizens watched him curiously. Few of them had seen a human before. Some pointed at his shorter height, others whispered about his plain clothes. But when he greeted them with a small bow and a calm smile, many found themselves softening. He did not act with pride or demand attention. He simply moved among them as if he belonged. Later that evening, Ryan entered the grand archives of Zirith, a place where history and knowledge were stored in glowing crystals. The hall was quiet, with tall shelves of light rising higher than his eyes could follow. He placed his hand on one crystal, and it lit up, showing records of Zirith's long past. Wars fought, victories gained, and alliances made. He searched deeper and found records of humanity as seen by alien eyes. The words were filled with doubt. Humans were seen as latecomers to the galaxy, a people with little to offer. Yet, even among those doubtful words, he noticed a pattern. Again and again, records showed humans surviving hardships that would have destroyed others. They had no great fleets, no endless lifespans, yet they endured. Ryan stood silently, reading. His heart grew steady. He did not need to fight the princess's words with anger. Time and action would prove her wrong. Back in the palace, Princess Isha sat in her chamber. She paced the room, her silver robes brushing against the floor. Her mind was restless. She thought of the human's calm eyes. Why had he not defended himself? Why had he not argued? She had expected a display of weakness or pride, but his silence felt different. It had unsettled the court, and it unsettled her most of all. An advisor entered the room, bowing low. "Princess, forgive my boldness, but many in the city whisper already. They ask why the human left in silence. Some say his calmness shows strength." Isha frowned. "Strength? Silence is not strength. Silence is emptiness." The advisor lowered his eyes but did not reply. His silence carried its own message. That night, the city glowed under twin moons. Ryan walked near the energy gardens where great crystals powered the heart of Zirith. He saw children playing, merchants selling glowing fruits, and families gathering under the soft lights. The people here lived in peace, protected by their technology and guided by their rulers. Yet he noticed something else. Many citizens worked tirelessly to maintain this peace. They repaired machines, they farmed, they cleaned, they built. Even the most powerful city relied on the hands of ordinary people. Ryan felt a quiet connection. Humanity too had survived because of ordinary people who refused to give up. While he observed, a small group of citizens approached him. An elder with bright eyes spoke. "You are the human envoy, are you not?" Ryan bowed his head politely. "Yes. My name is Ryan." The elder studied him for a moment. "Some say our princess insulted you today. Yet you did not fight back. Why?" Ryan smiled faintly. "Because words can be sharp, but they fade quickly. Actions remain." The elder nodded slowly, respect shining in his eyes. Others nearby heard his answer and whispered among themselves. The tale of the human who walked away without anger began to spread. In the royal palace, Isha could not sleep. Her mind replayed the scene again and again. She had wanted to show strength, yet it was the human who left the hall with the air of control. She felt a spark of frustration, but also something she did not want to name: curiosity. The next morning, the king met with his council. Reports came that the human envoy had been seen among the citizens, speaking kindly and helping without complaint. The people were already beginning to like him. The king stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Perhaps this human has more to offer than we first believed." Princess Isha listened, her heart tightening. She had wanted the people to look to her as a leader, but now whispers of respect for the human grew louder. For the first time, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Ryan, however, did not think of winning or losing. He spent his time learning about Zirith, its culture, its people, and its struggles. He carried no bitterness. His silence was not born from weakness, but from patience. He knew that one day, actions would show the truth. The morning sun rose over Zirith, casting a silver glow across the city. Crystals lining the streets caught the light and spread it like soft fire across the towers. The people began their daily routines, unaware that something dangerous was brewing beneath the surface. Deep in the heart of the capital lay the great energy core, a massive structure that powered half the city. The core was built from Zirith's finest crystal, pulsing with blue light that flowed like veins across the ground. For centuries, it had been stable. But that day, a sharp tremor ran through the chambers, and the steady glow flickered. In the control room, engineers rushed back and forth. Panels flashed red, alarms echoed, and the hum of the core turned unsteady. One engineer shouted, the energy build-up is rising too fast. If it reaches the upper limit, the core could explode. Another voice answered, trembling with fear. We cannot contain it. The stabilizers are failing. The threat was serious. If the core failed, half the city would fall into darkness, and the explosion could destroy thousands of lives. At that moment, Ryan was walking through the lower streets, speaking with merchants and observing their ways of trade. He noticed the lights around him flicker, then dim. The ground shook slightly under his feet. The citizens around him gasped, fear rising in their eyes. Something is wrong with the core, a guard shouted as he ran past. Ryan followed quickly. He reached the energy district, where crowds were gathering outside the sealed gates. Panic filled the air. Children cried, families clung to each other, and the guards tried to calm them but looked just as afraid. Inside, the engineers argued, unable to find a solution. They were skilled, but they had never faced a malfunction of this scale. The technology was advanced, but their pride made them slow to adapt to sudden failures. Ryan stepped forward. "Let me inside," he told the guards. The guards hesitated. "This is not a place for you, human." But before they could refuse, the elder Ryan had met the night before appeared. He looked at the guards and spoke firmly. "Let him through. If he wishes to help, allow it." Reluctantly, the gates opened, and Ryan entered the control chamber. The engineers looked up in surprise. Some frowned, thinking a human could not possibly help. But Ryan ignored their stares. He studied the glowing panels and the trembling light of the core. He remembered Earth's first colonies on barren moons. He remembered when their power systems failed, when oxygen dropped, when life hung on the edge of nothing. Humans had no advanced technology then, but they had learned to survive by adapting quickly and thinking simply. Ryan walked to the main panel and spoke calmly. "The stabilizers are overheating because the power flow is stuck in a closed loop. You are feeding too much energy back into the same channel. You need to reroute it." The chief engineer looked at him sharply. "You speak as if you know our systems. How could a human understand this?" Ryan met his eyes. "I may not know your systems, but I know what happens when energy has nowhere to go. On Earth, we faced this many times. Machines overloaded, but we learned to release pressure before it destroyed everything." The chief engineer hesitated. The alarm screamed louder. Sparks flew from a side panel. The glow of the core flared dangerously. Ryan continued, his voice steady. "If you do not act, it will break. Divert the flow to the side channels. Use the auxiliary lines. Release the pressure into smaller streams. It will not stop the core from shaking, but it will keep it from exploding." The room fell silent for a moment, then the chief engineer gave the order. "Do as he says." Hands moved quickly over the panels. Channels shifted. Streams of light broke away from the core, flowing into side crystals. The trembling slowed. The alarms grew softer. The steady hum returned, though weak. The core stabilized. The engineers let out breaths of relief. Some wiped sweat from their brows. Others stared at Ryan with wide eyes. The chief engineer looked at him again, but this time with respect. "Your words saved us. If you had not spoken, the core would have gone beyond control." Ryan only nodded. "It was not me alone. It was all of us acting quickly." Outside, the citizens waited in fear. When the gates opened and the word spread that the core had been saved, cheers erupted. The people shouted in joy, some even calling Ryan's name though many did not yet know it well. From the palace, Princess Isha heard the news. At first, she did not believe it. A human helped save the core? Impossible. But her advisor bowed and replied, "It is true, Princess. The people already speak of it. They say the human saw what our engineers could not. They say he stayed calm while all others panicked." Isha's pride flared, but her heart wavered. She had called him weak. She had dismissed him as fragile. Yet he had walked into the heart of danger and found a way to steady their greatest power source. Her chest tightened with an unfamiliar feeling. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was respect, though she refused to name it. That evening, Ryan walked quietly through the city once more. Citizens bowed to him, thanking him, offering food, and calling him a friend. He accepted their kindness humbly, never raising his voice, never boasting. He only said, "We helped each other. That is what matters." Princess Isha watched from the palace balcony as the human walked among her people. Her eyes narrowed, but her heart was restless. For the first time, she wondered if her words in the great hall had been a mistake. The silence of his departure now returned to her mind, heavier than ever. The story of the human envoy who saved the city spread quickly across Zirith. The nobles could not ignore it. The king himself began to see a new path forming. And Isha, proud and young, began to feel a spark of something she had never felt before: doubt in her own judgment. The night after the core crisis was quiet. The city of Zirith glowed with soft blue light, but beneath the calm surface, whispers filled the streets. Everywhere people spoke of the human envoy, Ryan. They spoke of how he had stepped into danger when others froze, how his calm words had guided the engineers, and how his presence had saved the city from disaster. In the palace, Princess Isha sat in her chamber, restless. She tried to focus on her scrolls of study, but her mind refused to obey. Again and again, she saw the image of the human walking out of the great hall in silence, and now another image joined it, the same human standing before the trembling core, giving orders that saved her people. Her pride resisted the thought. She whispered to herself, "He is still only human. A child among stars." It was luck, not strength. But her words felt hollow, and she knew it. That evening she ordered her guards, "Bring me news of the human envoy's movements. Tell me where he goes, what he does, and who he speaks to." The guards obeyed, though some exchanged quiet glances. Even they had begun to speak with respect about the human. The next morning, Isha learned that Ryan was in the lower districts again, helping citizens repair machines that had been damaged during the core disturbance. Curiosity gnawed at her. She told herself it was her duty to observe him, but in truth, she simply wanted to see with her own eyes what the whispers described. Disguised in a plain cloak, Isha left the palace with only one trusted attendant. They walked through the markets, where the smell of glowing fruits and spice-filled air surrounded them. She blended into the crowd and soon found him. Ryan was kneeling beside a broken transport cart, speaking calmly to a group of workers. His hands were dirty with crystal dust, yet he worked with focus, not caring who watched. The workers listened carefully as he explained how to adjust the energy lines. When the cart hummed back to life, the crowd cheered. The workers bowed their heads in thanks, and Ryan only smiled faintly, saying, "We all learn when we work together." Isha felt something strange stir in her chest. She had expected pride, arrogance, or perhaps a hidden desire for attention. Instead, she saw a quiet strength that did not need applause. Her attendant whispered, "Princess, he wins hearts without even trying." Isha frowned. "He wins them because they are simple and easily swayed." But even as she said the words, she knew they were not true. What she saw was not trickery. It was genuine. The people admired him because he cared for them, even though he was not one of them. Later that day, Ryan visited a school where children of Zirith studied history and science. Isha followed quietly, watching through the open windows. The teacher welcomed him to speak, and Ryan stood before the children with gentle eyes. He told them stories of Earth, of the oceans that stretched farther than the eye could see, of the mountains that touched the clouds, of the deserts where life fought to survive with little water. He spoke of how humans had learned to adapt, to build homes in places where others thought survival was impossible. The children listened with wide eyes, and when he finished, they clapped with joy. One small child asked, "Envoy, Are humans really weak as some say? Ryan paused, then knelt so his eyes met the child's. His voice was soft but clear. Weakness and strength are not fixed things. Sometimes, the ones who are called weak find strength in ways others cannot see. What matters most is not what others call you, but what you choose to do. The teacher bowed in respect. The children's eyes shone with admiration. And outside the window, Princess Isha felt her chest tighten again. His words struck her deeper than she wished to admit. That evening, she returned to the palace in silence. Her attendant finally spoke. Princess, you see him now. He is not what you thought. Isha stood by the balcony, looking down at the glowing city. Her pride battled within her. He is human. He should not outshine us. And yet, she let the words fade, unfinished. Days passed, and Isha continued to observe him from a distance. She watched him walk the streets, never seeking attention, yet always drawing it. She saw him help a vendor lift heavy crates, speak kindly to a lost child, and listen patiently to an elder's long story. Each act was small, but together they built something greater than she could deny. One afternoon, she decided to approach him directly. She found him sitting near the crystal gardens, speaking with a group of workers. When he saw her, he rose politely. Princess, he greeted with a slight bow. His voice held no bitterness, no memory of her insult. He treated her as he treated anyone else, with calm respect. That unsettled her more than anger ever could. Isha tried to speak with the sharp tone she always used. You walk among my people as if you belong here. Do you seek their favor to prove me wrong? Ryan shook his head. I seek nothing but understanding. When people share their lives with me, I am grateful. That is all. His words carried no hidden edge, no attempt to wound her. She felt heat rise in her chest, but it was not anger. It was shame. She had insulted him in front of the entire court, and yet he held no grudge. She asked again, softer this time. Why did you walk away that day? Why did you not defend yourself? Ryan looked at her with calm eyes. Because words spoken in anger only feed pride. Silence is sometimes the strongest answer. If I had argued, nothing would have changed. By walking away, I left space for truth to reveal itself in time. Isha stood frozen, his words echoing in her mind. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her tutors, not even her father. For the first time, she felt the walls of her pride begin to crack. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake, thinking of the human who carried himself with quiet dignity, who won the hearts of her people without force, and who showed strength without raising his voice. She had thought of him as fragile, yet now she saw something that unsettled her deeply. Perhaps true strength was not loud. Perhaps it was calm, steady, and unshaken, even in the face of insult. The sky over Zereth darkened as a strange storm approached. Its colors were unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. Waves of violet and green energy danced across the clouds, crackling like invisible lightning. The people of the city looked up in fear. No storm like this had been recorded in Zereth's long history. In the royal palace, Princess Isha watched from the balcony. Her heart pounded. She had learned to trust the city's shields and the energy cores that protected it. But even the strongest shields might not withstand the raw power of this cosmic storm. The alarm sounded throughout the city. Crystal panels on the streets blinked red, warning citizens to stay indoors. Many ran to safe shelters, but some had no time to escape. The storm approached faster than anyone expected. Ryan, meanwhile, had been walking through the streets, speaking to citizens and observing the city's structures. When the first crack of the storm hit the outer districts, he saw the danger immediately. Small structures began to shake, and minor energy surges spread through the streets. The city's shield generators were straining to their limits. He rushed toward the central energy district, where the main shield controls were located. Engineers were running in panic, unable to coordinate the response. Their voices rose in alarm, but no one could calm the system. Ryan approached calmly. "Stop shouting," he said quietly but firmly. "Shouting will not fix anything. We need clear thinking." The engineers looked at him in surprise. Some had not expected a human to have knowledge of their systems. Others were shocked by his calmness. "You cannot understand the scale of this storm," one engineer shouted. "You are only human." Ryan smiled faintly. "Humans survive storms much worse than this. We can learn quickly. We can adapt. Now, show me the controls." The engineers hesitated, but the storm pressed closer, and their fear turned to trust. They stepped aside as Ryan examined the control panels. His eyes scanned the glowing displays and pulsing energy streams. He noted the points of overload and the areas where the shield lines were weak. "Divert energy here," he instructed, pointing to a secondary panel. "Activate the auxiliary stabilizers now. Work together and follow my count. 1, 2, 3. Hands moved quickly, guided by his calm voice. The shields shifted, energy flows redistributed, and the pulsing hum of the city steadied. Sparks flew from the side panels, but Ryan remained focused, giving orders without panic. The storm hit fully, sending waves of violet energy crashing against the city. Buildings shook, windows cracked, and citizens inside their homes held their breath. But the shields held. The core remained stable. Ryan's coordination kept the city safe from destruction. Princess Isha watched from the palace balcony, her eyes wide. She had expected the shields to falter, expecting panic, and perhaps even failure. But the human moved with confidence, calm as if he had faced this challenge many times. She had dismissed him before, insulted him in front of the court, yet now he stood as the one her people relied on. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, but inside the shielded city, Ryan guided the engineers and volunteers tirelessly. He encouraged the citizens to help each other, spoke calmly to frightened children, and reminded everyone that panic would only make the situation worse. By the evening, the storm began to weaken. Its energy faded as it moved past the city, leaving only damaged structures and frightened citizens. The shields held strong, the city's energy cores remained intact, and not a single life was lost. Citizens poured into the streets, cheering for the human who had led them. They lifted him on their shoulders, clapped, and called his name. Even those who had doubted humans now bowed in respect. Princess Isha descended from the palace quietly, stepping into the streets for the first time during the crisis. She observed the celebration with mixed emotions. Pride for her city's survival clashed with a deep awareness of her own misjudgment. She approached Ryan carefully. You saved them all," she said softly, unable to hide her astonishment. Ryan looked at her, calm as ever. "We saved them together. Everyone who followed instructions helped. I only guided them." She searched his face, looking for pride or arrogance. There was none. Only patience, quiet confidence, and respect for those around him. "I insulted you once," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I said humans were weak. I see now that I was wrong." Ryan's gaze remained gentle. "It does not matter what was said. Actions are stronger than words. We all have moments where we misjudge others." For the first time, Princess Isha bowed slightly to someone who was not royal. The gesture shocked the onlookers. Citizens whispered in awe as their young princess, proud and sharp-tongued, showed humility. Ryan turned to address the crowd. "Today, we learned that fear can be managed with calm thinking. That courage does not always shout, and strength does not always fight. We can face storms together, and we will emerge stronger." The citizens cheered even louder, inspired by his words. Children clapped their hands, elders nodded in agreement, and even the engineers smiled, proud to have worked under guidance that saved countless lives. That night, after the celebrations had ended, Princess Isha returned to her chamber. She could not stop thinking about the human envoy. Her pride had been tested, her judgment challenged, and her understanding of strength changed. She realized that leadership was not only about power and tradition. It was about patience, guidance, and humility. Ryan, meanwhile, walked quietly through the repaired streets, checking on citizens, helping where he could, and teaching by example. He did not seek praise, yet it followed him. He did not raise his voice, yet he inspired everyone around him. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained. Princess Isha knew that her future encounters with Ryan would not be simple. He was not just a human child to dismiss. He was a quiet force, a being who could change hearts without arguing, who could lead without commanding, and who could show strength through calm wisdom. The day after the storm, Zirith slowly returned to normal. Citizens cleaned the streets, repaired damaged carts, and checked their homes for cracks or broken panels. The glow of the city felt calmer, steadier. Yet beneath the quiet, a new energy had spread among the people. They spoke of Ryan wherever they went. He had guided them through fear and danger without raising his voice, and they had seen strength and courage unlike anything before. Princess Isha remained in the palace, yet she could not stay still. Her thoughts were full of the human envoy. His calmness, his wisdom, his quiet leadership haunted her. She had once thought him weak, a child among stars. Now she realized that her words had been wrong, and her heart felt the weight of her mistake. She summoned her closest advisor, an elder named Kale. "Kale," she said, her voice soft, "I need to understand more about him. Tell me what you have seen." Kale bowed deeply. "Princess, the human Ryan has proven himself to be extraordinary. He does not seek glory. He does not argue when insulted. He acts with patience, kindness, and intelligence. The citizens respect him, and his guidance during the storm saved countless lives." Isha clenched her hands. "I see that. But why does it feel like my pride has failed me?" Kale smiled gently. "True strength is not measured by pride or words, princess. It is measured by actions and the ability to lift others. You have been taught to lead with authority. He leads with humility. That is why his presence unsettles you." Isha nodded slowly. She looked out at the city and saw groups of citizens still talking about Ryan. Their admiration was growing. She felt a pang of guilt for underestimating him. She realized that her insult had not harmed him. He had not sought revenge or insulted her back. He had acted in silence, letting deeds speak louder than words. That afternoon, she decided to leave the palace and see Ryan with her own eyes. She walked through the streets, moving quietly so as not to draw attention. The citizens greeted her respectfully, but she hardly noticed. Her eyes were searching for him. She found Ryan near the outer gardens, helping a group of citizens repair energy panels that had been damaged in the storm. He worked patiently, speaking calmly to each person, explaining the steps clearly so everyone could understand. No one felt inferior or afraid. They worked together as a team. Isha stopped and watched. She felt a strange warmth in her chest. This human, whom she had insulted, was showing care and guidance far greater than she had expected from anyone. She stepped closer. "Ryan," she called softly. He looked up and smiled faintly, bowing his head slightly. "Princess Isha." She felt her pride resist the words she needed to say. But she could not ignore the truth any longer. "I spoke harshly to you," she admitted. "I insulted you in front of the court. I was wrong. I see now that humans are stronger than I thought." Ryan's calm gaze met hers. "Thank you for saying that, princess. But it is not about who is stronger. It is about what we can do together, and how we treat others." Isha looked at him, feeling the weight of his wisdom. He was not boasting. He was not demanding recognition. He was simply showing the qualities she had not considered before. She realized that her arrogance had blinded her to the truth of his character. She stepped closer and asked quietly, "Why do you forgive so easily? Why do you not hold anger or resentment for my words?" Ryan's eyes were steady. "Anger and resentment are heavy burdens. I choose to focus on helping others and learning from every experience. Carrying hate does not build strength. It only weakens the one who holds it." Isha's shoulders relaxed slightly. She felt the truth of his words. She had carried pride as if it were armor, but in reality, it had limited her understanding. This human had shown her something she had never experienced before: humility paired with strength. Over the next days, she spent more time observing Ryan. She watched how he moved among the citizens, how he listened to their problems, and how he guided them without commanding. The people responded to him not because of authority or fear, but because of respect and trust. Even the city guards, who were trained to rely only on hierarchy, followed his advice willingly. Isha began to reflect on her own leadership. She saw that being proud was not enough. Authority without understanding could lead to mistakes. She realized that true leadership was about guiding others, lifting them up, and being patient. One evening, she approached Ryan again. This time, her voice was steady, but soft. "Ryan, you have shown me what leadership truly is. I have learned from you, and I hope one day I can lead with the wisdom and patience you show every day." Ryan nodded, his eyes calm. "Princess, you have already shown the ability to learn and change. That is a sign of true strength. Leadership is not only about commanding. It is about listening, guiding, and acting when it is needed." Isha smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She had insulted this human, yet he had never sought revenge. Instead, he had shown her a better way, not only for herself but for her people. Word of Ryan's deeds continued to spread throughout the city. Citizens spoke of the human envoy with admiration, telling stories of how he helped during the storm, how he guided workers, and how he taught patience and courage through his actions. Even nobles who once doubted humans began to respect him. The young princess observed all this silently, understanding that her initial prejudice had been wrong. She had learned that actions and character mattered far more than titles or appearances. She realized that humans, though small in number compared to other species, carried resilience, wisdom, and courage that could not be measured by strength alone. That night, Isha stood on her balcony, looking at the glowing city. She thought of Ryan walking among her people, teaching, guiding, and helping without seeking reward. She felt a deep respect for him, and a quiet determination grew in her heart. She wanted to become a leader who could inspire, guide, and protect, just as he had shown. Ryan, meanwhile, returned to his quarters quietly. He had no desire for fame, no wish for praise. He only wished to do what was right and help those in need. His calm strength had begun to influence Zirith, and he did not even notice the full extent of the change. Princess Isha knew that from this day forward, she would never see humans the same way again. She had been humbled, taught, and inspired by a 19-year-old human who had refused to fight with words, yet had shown the power of patience, courage, and quiet leadership. The city of Zirith sparkled under the twin moons. The storms had passed, and the citizens returned to their daily lives, yet the story of Ryan's calm strength and courage had spread throughout the city. He had become a quiet hero, admired not because of his title, but because of his actions. Inside the palace, Princess Isha prepared to meet him formally. She had spent days reflecting on her pride, her insult, and the lessons she had learned from him. Today, she would speak with him openly, not as a princess commanding respect, but as someone willing to recognize the strength of another. When she arrived at the gardens where Ryan was speaking with citizens, she noticed how naturally people gathered around him. His presence calmed them, encouraged them, and inspired them to work together. Even without words of command, he guided the people with patience and care. Isha stepped forward. "Ryan," she said clearly. Ryan turned, bowing slightly as always. Princess Isha. It is good to see you. She studied his calm face, his quiet confidence, and finally spoke the words she had kept inside for so long. I owe you an apology. I insulted you before, and I judged your people wrongly. I see now that strength does not always speak loudly. You have shown patience, courage, and wisdom beyond your years. I am grateful for your guidance and your example. Ryan smiled faintly, not with pride, but with understanding. Thank you, Princess. I did not come to prove anyone wrong. I only wished to help. That is all. Isha nodded, feeling the humility he had taught her reflect in her own heart. She turned slightly to the citizens who were still working in the gardens. Everyone, this human envoy has not only guided us through danger, but he has shown us how patience, wisdom, and courage can shape our actions. We owe him our respect and gratitude. The citizens cheered. Children ran forward, curious and excited to see the young human who had saved the city not with weapons, but with thought, calm, and leadership. The elders bowed their heads, their eyes shining with pride for the lessons he had brought. Ryan stayed calm, waving politely to those around him, acknowledging their respect without seeking it. His humility made the admiration grow even more. Later, inside the palace, the king and queen held a small council. Princess Isha spoke first. Father, Mother, we must recognize Ryan formally. His actions have not only saved our city, but have taught me lessons about leadership, patience, and humility. He is not only a human envoy, he is a teacher and a friend. The king nodded slowly. I saw the reports of the storm and the citizens' response. This human has acted with wisdom and courage. It is rare to see such calm in one so young. You are right, daughter. We must honor him. The queen smiled gently. It is also a lesson for all of us. Strength is measured not only by power or wealth, but by character and action. Ryan has shown that today. A ceremony was arranged in the Great Hall. Citizens gathered, nobles arrived, and the royal family took their seats. Princess Isha stood beside Ryan. When the announcer called his name, she stepped forward and addressed the crowd. People of Zirith, she began, her voice steady and proud, today we honor one who has shown courage, wisdom, and patience beyond expectation. He is not of Zirith, yet he has saved our city, guided our citizens, and taught lessons we will carry forward. I ask you to recognize Ryan of Earth, our envoy and our friend. The crowd erupted in cheers. They lifted Ryan on their shoulders, clapped, and called his name. He remained calm, not seeking glory, only acknowledging the respect with a gentle bow. Princess Isha felt a deep warmth in her heart. She had learned much from this young human. She realized that her pride had once blinded her, but now she had grown, inspired by example. The lessons of humility, courage, and quiet strength would guide her as she matured into a leader. After the ceremony, Isha and Ryan walked through the palace gardens together. You know, she said softly, I thought humans were fragile. I believed your people could not survive the challenges of the galaxy. I was wrong. You have shown me that strength is not always obvious, and that wisdom often comes quietly. Ryan looked at her calmly. It is easy to judge when we only see appearances. The truth often lies in action, not words. Humans are like all others, capable of great things when given the chance. Isha smiled faintly. And you have given us the chance to see that. I hope one day we can work together, humans and Zirithians, as true allies. Ryan nodded. That is all I wish for: friendship, understanding, and cooperation. Together, we can face any challenge. As the moons of Zirith rose high, the city glowed with renewed energy. Citizens returned to their lives, inspired by the courage they had witnessed. Ryan walked among them, teaching, guiding, and helping where needed, never seeking attention, but gaining the respect of all. Princess Isha watched him, feeling pride, admiration, and a quiet joy. She had learned a lesson she would never forget. True strength was not in titles, appearances, or words, but in action, humility, and the courage to stand steady even when insulted. The night ended peacefully. Ryan returned to his quarters, content that his work had inspired change. Princess Isha returned to the palace, changed as well. She had grown from prideful youth into a leader capable of reflection, humility, and wisdom. The citizens of Zirith would speak for generations of the young human who walked among them, who faced storms without fear, and who taught a proud princess that true strength could be quiet, calm, and wise. And so, a new alliance began, one built on respect, understanding, and shared courage. Humanity and Zirith had learned from each other. The insult that once hung in the Great Hall had been replaced by admiration, friendship, and the promise of a future where strength was measured by actions, not words. Ryan had turned and walked away once, not in defeat, but in patience. Now, his path was recognized and celebrated. His journey, quiet but powerful, had left a mark on an entire civilization. And Princess Isha, once proud and judgmental, now stood beside him as a leader ready to guide her people with wisdom learned from the human who refused to fight with anger. The galaxy had begun to see humanity differently. Not weak. Not fragile. But strong, patient, and capable of inspiring change. And for Zirith, this small envoy had proven that even the quietest steps could echo across the stars.